let's see here. Okay. So kind of continuing to review what I kind of and build on what we talked about last class is remember in the timeline view, you can press, what was it called? The tilde button, which is if you're on a Mac, is the button right to the left of the number 1. And so I can make any window full screen right here. So if I want my timeline full screen, I can just press that button right there. If I want my project full screen right there. So this can be really helpful on laptops to make editing go better. So looking at the timeline here for a moment, remember that I mentioned the snap button and the link selection button, and essentially just make sure that these buttons are on at all times. The snap button makes it so that your cursor snaps to from one clip to the next right here, which you're pretty much always going to want. And then this button right here, link selection, if I turn it on, which it is right now because it's highlighted blue, if I move footage, the audio from the footage moves along with it. If I turn it off, it's if I select it, it'll unlink from my audio, and you're rarely going to want that to happen. You pretty much always want this on right there. So just kind of leave those on. And let's see here. Remember, so we have we have 3 video layers and then 3 audio layers by default here on the screen. So the 3 video layers are right here, 3 audio layers right there. For more details on this, you can just review the tutorial from last class. And if you remember, if you look on the D2L under week 3, which we're currently on, I posted a link of that tutorial right there. So if you go to week 3, right here, this one link right here, this goes over all the basics of Premiere. So if you're ever just kind of if you're stuck in the mud on kind of some basic parts of Premiere, remember you can just click on that link. And it's also on my YouTube tutorial channel right there. So going through this, one really important thing I want to just kind of recap on is that if you're bringing in new footage right here, so I have my 3 clips right here. If you're bringing in a new footage from the project, if you're bringing in a new clip, notice that it's not letting me drag it on. I have to, unfortunately, with my footage, right click, go to new sequence from clip. It creates a new sequence, and you can see we can have multiple sequence in these tabs in the timeline right here. And I can select it and press Command C, go over here, press Command V. And so now I'm pasting the footage into my scene right here, my main sequence, which I named right here. Keep an eye on this audio layer right here. If you want to take advantage of your multiple layers right here, I have my video and my audio links, but notice when I drag this to go on top of the other the other video right there, it covers up the audio right there. So if you want to work with multiple layers in Premiere, it's super important that you get really disciplined with using the lock button right here. So now when I can kind of move that audio layer, so this is on video layer 2 and audio layer 2. And my layer 1 of audio and video is locked right now. And so now when I drag it to go on top and take advantage of layer 2, I'm not, it's non-destructive. I'm not losing my old audio right there. So kind of keep that in mind. That's a super important thing to kind of get used to, is just using these lock buttons a whole lot right here. And then the last super important thing that I want to kind of review from last class is the in and out button, really important here. So notice, let me just delete that. Notice that when I press spacebar, which is the play button as well, and that stops and starts your video here, and I'll start it right here. So I'll play, and then I'll stop. Then I'll play, and you see how it keeps going. So it always keeps moving forward no matter what when I'm just tapping the space bar, which is the main way you're going to preview. But let's say you're trying to focus on this particular edit right here. That's one area where this in and out point becomes really important. And the in and out shortcuts are really easy to remember. So it's just in is I, or you can press this button right here. And then out is O, which is right here. And so it doesn't limit where it plays from, but where these become really helpful is if you press Shift and I, your cursor will jump to that point. And then if you press Shift and O, your cursor will jump to that point. And so if you're just trying to watch this edit right here, for instance, I can press spacebar and let it go and think about it for a second. And then I can press Shift and I, and it jumps back to that point. And it makes it so I can just kind of have my hands on the keyboard instead of just fiddling with this cursor all the time, because fiddling with this cursor can get pretty cumbersome after a while because you have to click on it exactly. And additionally, using that shortcut, it lets you see it from the exact same point every time, right? So you're kind of getting a good sense of the timing. So shift and I jumps to the in point, Shift and O shifts to the out point. So the in and out, that's where this becomes really useful. And then another area, oh, and you can see my computer just auto-saved right there. So that's what that little saving bar was. So that was an auto-save right there. And additionally, the in and out, if I were to export my video right now, which is something I'm going to show in a minute, or in a few minutes here in this demo, the final video would only render out this region right here. So let's just say for a minute that what we see down here is my full finished film, and I'm ready to export it. Just kind of continuing to talk about the in and out points, is I would want to go to the first frame, press I for the endpoint, or you could also press that button right there. Then I can hold Shift and just snap it to my endpoint right there. And then I can either press this button or press O, and it's my out point. And so now when I go to export my finished QuickTime of my film, it'll just render out this region right here. So the in and out points are super important, and they're just helpful for a lot of reasons when you're working in Premiere here. And remember, the Shift I and Shift O are really helpful too, to kind of jump back and forth. I had a bad habit before of just kind of, you can use these buttons right here to do it, and that's kind of how I've done it in the past, but I think the shortcuts do make it a lot easier right there. So, and to get us just fully reviewed over what we went over yesterday, and there's a few things that I skipped past that we went over yesterday, like how to import footage, and all that stuff. So if you need a refresher on that, just review the video. But one last thing I want to review right here is, remember, we have the selection tool right here, and then we have the razor tool, and I call it the cut tool just so that the shortcut C, which is right there, is kind of closer to mind for me. Is let me zoom in on this a little bit. So the selection tool is the way you move a clip around. You can also, it's kind of a catch-all tool. You can shorten the clip right there just by grabbing the edges like that. And then the razor tool, or the cut tool, you press C, and you can use it to slice one clip into two clips right there. So I'll press V, move this over a little bit. And let's say I want to shorten this edit right here. I can press C on my keyboard, click right there, and it's now divided into two. I can select my second clip and delete it right there. So that's one way you can shorten a clip. And then the other way you can shorten a clip is just use the selection tool and drag it in like that a little bit right there. Okay, so does anyone have any questions on kind of reviewing what we talked about yesterday? Cool. Just in the chat, you just let just don't be shy to just say write it in the chat if you want me to stop, because I have it in vision right there. So these other buttons in here, I'm going to go over them all throughout this course, but I really want you guys just to kind of focus on the fundamentals here for now. You can do things like add text into your film. So hypothetically, if you want to add text into your film, let's just go ahead and kind of talk about that some here. And some of these tools right here, like the ripple edit, can be really useful. But I want you all to kind of get used to the fundamental tools before we kind of move on to those, because you can really, honestly, with just the selection tool and then the razor tool, you can do great editing just with those. And I don't want it to kind of get too bogged down with all these, technical things here. So hypothetically, if you want to add text into your film, you can just press on this button right here. So it's the type tool, shortcut T. And right here, you can see my cursor is a little cursor with a little bracket next to it. And I can just click and I can type, you know, a title right there. And if you notice, you remember how I was talking before about how we had effects controls and effects, and I put them up in my top left tab up here. So they might show up for you in a different place. Is under effects controls, this was blank before, but when I started typing, it started to fill up here. So let me just press edit undo to kind of get back out of it and do it again. So just keep your eye on effects controls right up here. And also keep in mind, it's going to create a new layer up here, a new video layer for the text. So again, I just press the type tool or press T, click right there. And you can see right here, let's talk about the timeline first. So it just makes a new layer right here. And it works just the same way as a video layer. So I can elongate it right here, or I can shorten it, or I can use the cut tool and cut it into pieces right here. So you can practice along with that. And remember, whatever layer in the video layers is on top is going to show on top of the footage that's underneath it here. So it's going to show on top of my footage right there. And it's just going to cut on and then cut off right there. So this is how you change the timing of it. Up in the effects controls, you can see we have a few, if you open up, we have these different subtabs that open up over here. And this is we're gonna talk about these two windows a lot here in this lesson today. So if we go under, so vector motion, here you can change the position and the scale of the entire layer. You can see this blue outline right here is changing the whole position of everything. And I usually don't mess with this too much, the vector motion. I usually go under video and motion right here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little mixed up. So let me just go in order here. So right here is the main tab you want to focus on when you're adding text into a scene. So let me press the tilde button to make this full screen here for a second. And so I'm in the effects controls tab. And you can see right here, I can choose between any text, any font that I want right here. You can load new fonts onto your computer if you want. Or you can kind of go off the fonts that you already have. One thing that's nice about Adobe is you can add Adobe fonts. So if you click right here, it brings you to a web page where you can search Adobe's library and just very quickly download new fonts online. And you get quick access to them. All you do is you just kind of download it in and it automatically loads into your computer right here. So that's super helpful. And right here, so we have these different controls, and I'm not going to dive too much into these right now, but we can change the fill color, for instance. So right now we have our text. Let me change the font to something else. I'll change it to Arial. These buttons right here, I can make it bold or regular. I can make it italicized with that button. I can make it all caps right here, or you could just type it in all caps. Over here, we can change the scale of the text right here with the slider right here. So it's at 100, and so you can rescale it with a slider right here. Again, these are kind of redundant, but this is regular, italic, bold, and then bold italic in this tab, which you can also get with these buttons right here. These have to do with kerning, and that's a whole like graphic design lesson right here. So I'm just gonna kind of save that for a later date. But right here is the paragraph button. So right now it's left aligned, meaning that when you start typing, it's aligned to the left of where you first started typing. Right here is center aligned, and you can see the anchor point right there is the center. And I can reposition this just by grabbing it with my selection tool and moving it around right here. or I can align it to the right. So right now the anchor point, I don't know if you can see it, it's like a little crosshair, is over on this side. And so now when it's right aligned, if I press the T button and then I press return and I write another piece of text, you see when I'm typing it in, it is coming in from the right side and deleting from the right side. If I press this button right here and I reposition my text block, when I start typing on the second line right here, and I just do it by clicking in there, I'm going to arrow down. It's coming in from the left side right there. So this is kind of, if you're familiar with Photoshop and graphic design, this is going to be really familiar to you right here. And so remember, again, you can reposition your text just by grabbing it with the selection tool. And then additionally right here, so right now the text is white. I can click on this, I'll get a color wheel, and I can change it to whatever color I want right here. So I just click in this box right here with the color. And right here, the way this box works for anyone who's familiar is we have black in the top left corner. We go to gray, scrolling along the left, and then all the way down to white. Then we have fully saturated black down to red right here. And then we got the rainbow right here, so we can go through all the hues right here. So we kind of got brightness and contrast on this side of the graph, and then it gets more and more saturated as you bring it in here. You can also use the eye picker right here. And oh, I've got a security thing set up on this computer. Okay, that's a whole thing. Just, where you might have to go into your system preferences and just enable, get your computer to trust this program in order to use the color picker, because it's picking the color that's on your computer right there. If that makes sense. So you can just change the color right here. And this is, oh, is there a question? Okay, let's see here. So that's type right. That's how you can use the text tool right here. And remember, just the main selection tool, which is the catch-all tool, is a way you can kind of move it around right here. I'm just going to move this off to the side because we might use it here at another point here. So that's kind of beginning to introduce us to this effects controls window right here. And we're going to kind of, for the rest of this lesson, going to dive further into this. So we have effects controls and effects right here. So right now I've shown you how to do kind of most of what you need for editing, honestly. Bring in the footage, keep it organized in your project directory, put it in your timeline and start cropping and editing the timing of things, which is the most important aspect. How to keep this organized in your timeline. But right now we only have access to cuts, right? And something that's super, super important that I want to emphasize here is that when you're editing, or at least when I'm editing, 99% of the time I'm cutting, right? Most of the time you don't want to do the cheesy, like checkerboard wipes and all that stuff, right? But you have access to that stuff right here under effects and video transitions right here. So we have all different kinds of dissolves that we can have happen from one shot to the next right here. So right now it's cutting from a plant to a soda can. And we have all these different options right here. And the main one that I want to focus on is the dissolve tab right here, because this is what you're going to be using most of the time when you can kind of experiment with these other ones if you're interested in it. So we have like slide, and we can do wipe transitions like a barn door and all that stuff. But I never use that stuff. I'm always either cutting or using dissolves. And if I need to do something really complicated, then that's when I bring it into a program like After Effects, where you can actually make it complicated and customized. But so let's try to do a cross dissolve from this plant to this can right here. And this is actually really easy once you know how to do it. Is a cross dissolve is where you just dissolve opacity from one shot directly into the next. And I'm just going to move this clip out of the way. And so a cross dissolve right here, all you need to do is you just click on this little box where it says cross dissolve, and then you drag it onto your timeline. And you can see right here, let me actually zoom in on my timeline a little bit more so we can see this better. And I'm going to press the plus button to zoom in. I think that's a shortcut I forgot to write down in the shortcut list, is the plus button, really helpful right here. And then I'm just going to make this window a little bit bigger so that we can see what's going on in the timeline better. Okay, so dragging across dissolve. So I'm dragging it right in the middle between the two shots, and you can see how it highlights burgundy right there for a moment. You might see it highlight burgundy on one side. So right now it's only going to go on one side on the first clip. And now it's going to go on the right side, which is the second clip. If you drag it into the middle, it'll cross dissolve between both frames right here. Let me make sure I did that right. Okay, there we go. And so you can see this kind of brownish box right here shows up. And so let me just set my in and out point right here, or my end point, and I'll press play. And you can see as soon as that box starts, it dissolves into the cam. So do you see that? So this box right here is that it indicates two things. It first indicates that there's a cross dissolve happening. And then secondly, it indicates the timing of the cross dissolve. So the bigger this box, and you can see if I grab either on the left corner right here and extend it out, I can make the cross dissolve longer, or I can grab it and make it shorter right there. And that sets the duration of the cross dissolve. So it's dissolving from the plant to the can. And I can make it longer again just by grabbing the box. You can see my cursor turns into a red bracket right there. And it's kind of this inner box that happens within your timeline. And you might have to make your layer bigger in order to see it. In order to kind of make your layer larger vertically, is this tab right here. So you can just drag it up to make it smaller, or drag it down to make it larger right there. And again, changing the timing right here. So this is a cross dissolve. And typically when you see a cross dissolve in film, it's usually, how do I say this? Usually dissolves are indicating a passage of time, typically. So cross dissolves are a little more amorphous in terms of what their meaning is. I'll dive into their meaning here more in a second here. So I tried out a cross dissolve. Let's say that I tried it out and I don't want to, I tried it, it doesn't look good, I don't want to do it. All you need to do is, you can see right here as I'm clicking on clip 2 and it's highlighting white. Here I'm clicking on clip 1 and it's highlighting white. And if I click right here, the cross dissolve goes from brown to gray. And if I press just delete on my keyboard, it deletes out and it's gone. And so now when I go and play it back, it just goes back to a normal cut right there. Okay. So let's kind of go over a few more of these. So we have dip to black and dip to white right here. So dip to black is a super useful one. And what that, you'll usually use that at the beginning and the end of a film, right? Dip to black, you might also do it at the end of a scene where there's going to be a big passage of time, as you'll kind of dip out to black and then fade back up for a next scene. And when an audience sees a dip to black and then a dip up from black, they'll typically associate that with like, okay, we've changed from one setting or one time to another, so you can have the passage of a day happen just by doing this technique right here. And if you kind of time it out correctly and all that stuff. So dip to black. And I'll kind of expand on this in a minute here, but you can see right here, I can drag it so that it's in the middle right here. So if I drag it in the middle, it's going to dip to black on one shot, and then it's going to dip up from black on the second shot right here. And so I'll just drag it in the middle. And that's pretty quick, right? So if you want it to be like a real passage of time, it might need to be a little bit longer. I'll set my endpoint a little bit earlier just by pressing I. And so we have a scene here. We're dipping to black. It's like a new day, typically. That's kind of the most traditional meaning of what that edit means right there. Let me delete out that dip to black. And let's say this is the end of the film right here. at this wonderful shot of the can. You know, you typically don't want to cut out at the end of the film most of the time. I mean, there's times where you want to do it, you know, for if you want like an abrupt kind of thing. But a lot of times you're going to want to do a dip to black at the end of your film. And so you just drag it to the end right there. And again, you can change the timing right here just by grabbing the block right there. And then dipping to black right there. Really simple. And again, just delete it out. Something that you'll find a lot of the time, and let me just test this out, is let's say, so I have these two shots, and let's say that I want to dip to black on my first shot, but I want my next shot just to cut on. I'm pretty sure this is going to still dip down to black and then dip up from black. And so in order to avoid that, what you're going to need to do, and I'm going to press the tilde button right here, select my second clip, and I'm just going to move it up to the second video layer right there. So now I have clip 1 on video layer 1, clip 2 on video layer 2. On clip 1, I'll just dip to black right here. And so now it's going to dip to black from the plant, but then it'll cut on to the can. So dip to black, then we cut. So sometimes if you don't want these effects to kind of correlate from one clip to the other, you might have to start moving using different video layers right here. So you can see that I put on 2 different video layers that time. And then obviously with dip to black, you can dip up from black. So at the beginning of the film, for instance, you can just grab it and put it at the beginning and it'll fade up right there. And again, delete it right there. So to expand on dip to black a little bit, one that I really like a lot is film dissolve. It's a lot like dip to black, but it has just, it's a little more organic feeling. Let's see if I can get it to actually go on there. Okay, so right here, film dissolve, exactly like dip to black. It's just, it's hard, it's probably not gonna show up over Zoom, and it's a very subtle difference, but I find it just to be a little more organic feeling. They did a good job just kind of having it feel a little bit more like an old school film kind of cutting right there. So that's one thing to remember, is just film dissolve, exactly the same as dip to black. Then finally I have dip to white right here. So I'll put this at the end of the scene. So you can see right there, dip to white. And it's the same as dip to black, obviously. And the reason you would use dip to white is, you know, it's used a lot in like films if like a character, I guess the most common context is like dies and goes to heaven or something, or is you see it a lot with like a character getting knocked out and like being put into a new location right here. So that's kind of like the dip to white right there. And those are kind of some of the most important video transitions right there. And I think for this project, I typically stick with these, I think, but remember that we have these other ones here, right here. So we have, let's just do like a gradient wipe right here. And I'll put it right here. I never use this, so we'll see how this works. But you have access to these other ones. Like I find them to be pretty cheesy, but it's, you have these other kind of transitions right here. And again, just click it, delete it, it's gone. But try them out, because, you know, you might be working on something where those work better than a traditional fader cut right there. When I was taking a class like this, when I was your age, I had a teacher who was like obsessed with the checkerboard wipe, and he would like fail you if you didn't do the checkerboard wipe, and it drove me absolutely crazy. So I'll try not to be the reverse of that. I'll try not to overcorrect and fail you if you do the checkerboard wipe, you know. But I don't know, I've got a bad taste in my mouth over that one. Let's see here. So that's the effects tab right here. And there's a lot more in here with the effects tab. For instance, under audio effects, if we open that up, you remember when I was showing you all Audition, I was showing you can put reverbs on your effects. You can put under amplitude and compression. I tried my best to give a demonstration on how you can use dynamics, which is a form of compression to block out noise if you have background noise in your voiceover and things like that. And so Audition's better for that stuff in terms of the audio effects, but you can do it entirely in Premiere. And if you want to add one of like these audio effects, let me first just bring in the audio into the scene right here. And this is going to be really loud. You can see we have the audio meter right there. Remember, 0 decibels is like the absolute max. So this is really compressed and brought up to the maximum volume right there. But I can do things like if I just grab reverb and I'll do, let's do a studio reverb. You can just click it and all you have to do is just drag it right on to your clip right there. And you can do this with visual stuff too, these visual effects. You can just click it and just drag it right on directly onto your layers here. And to change the effects of the reverb, you just need to make sure that the clip is selected right here. Here we go. And it'll show up under your effects controls tab. And so I can just, we have reverb, I can turn it on and off right here. And I can expand it out and change the settings of it. And generally speaking, you need to click it and then drag it this way. With this reverb, the best way to make it more prominent, if it's too subtle, is you go down to the bottom where it says wet output level. Wet is the amount of signal that is getting the effect. Dry is the amount of the signal, whether it's visual or audio, that is just as it was before. So if I bring this way up, you can hear that reverb's. You can hear that reverb's really prominent now. So additionally, going back to this effects tab right here, if you have a clip in Premiere and you want to make it louder or softer, it's really easy. You just click on either the audio. So this is an audio file that I have right here. And whenever you click on a tab, this effects controls tab updates to be whatever clip that you have selected right there. So if I want to change the volume on my video right here, you just go, you click on the clip and you go up to volume right here under effects controls and you go to level and you can adjust the level to be, it's naturally set at 0 decibels, but if you want it to be louder, you can set it louder here and just keep an eye on your decibel meter. Because remember I said 0 dB is the maximum amount of decibels, but what I'm talking about is the decibel meter right here. So just kind of keep that in mind. So you can make it more than 0 decibels right here if your audio is really soft, which is the case with this footage right here. You can barely see any wave files showing up at all right there. But right here, I want to take the audio down on this music. So I'll just click on the clip, look over in the effects tab, go to the volume tab right here, expand it up. And then under levels, I can just drag it down. I'll put it at -25 decibels. So it'll go from 0 right here. And you see it went down 25 decibels right there. So I kind of show you how to dissolve out of footage, cross dissolves and things like that. So how do you automate volume is kind of the next thing I want to show here. So I have the audio tab right here. And this is this gets like a little more complicated. So I'm going to set this to be 0 or I'll do -10. -10 decibels right here. And oops. Okay. And this is really important. We're gonna be doing this a lot in the future this semester here. This is going to come up a lot in After Effects. This is a really similar system to After Effects, is setting up keyframing. So the animators out there probably have an idea of what keyframing means here. And so let's zoom in on this clip a little bit. And you can see with this audio tab, let me make it a little bit larger so that you can see it better, because the visuals are not important right now. So this audio tab, you can see this little white line right here. And that white line is that's another way you can control the levels right here. So right now it's at 0. I can drag it down right here, and you can see this number is saying negative 9.1, going down to negative 14.9 right there. So I drag it all the way down to negative 25.6 decibels, and you can see it updates right there. If I type in negative 10, you'll see that white line on the timeline change back up there. And you can see right here when I typed it in, sometimes this will happen where I'll create a keyframe, and you can see the keyframe is a little gray dot right there, but it also shows up as like a square turned on its side, like a little diamond shape up here in this tab right here. And you can just select it and delete it if you want that keyframe to be gone. So right now, what a keyframe is it lets you animate the how loud your clip is. And so right now it's set at negative 10 and it's static. It's just staying at negative 10. So if you want your audio to stay at negative 10 the whole time, you just leave it there and forget it. But let's say you want the audio to fade out or fade in. The way that you, I typically do that is I'll do keyframing. And so it's not too bad. All you need to do is we have our clip right here, and I'm going to find the point in time where I want it to be at full volume, which in this case is going to be negative 10. And it's this button right here. And you can see if you hover your cursor over it, it gives you a readout of what it says. It says add or remove a keyframe right there. And so when I click this button, a little gray dot's going to appear here, and then a little diamond's going to appear over in this window right here. So click right there. You can see that little gray diamond shows up right here. There's a little gray dot right here. And let's say I want to fade up my audio. So I'm just going to hold Shift, drag over to my first frame of the clip. And then now I can create a second keyframe. All I need to do is going to generate it automatically when I change this number. So if I drag it down to like negative 45 right there, you can see it created a second, it's hard to see right here, but it created a second diamond shape at the first frame of the clip. And you can also see right here, the white line shows the automation happening right there. And I can actually change the automation just by grabbing that down and dragging it down to infinite. So now this clip is going to fade up in terms of audio. So that can be really helpful for the beginning of a film, right? Or the end of a film where you generally want to fade in, fade out your audio right there. So just to show this technique one more time, is I'm just going to delete my keyframes. So just select one keyframe, delete it, select the second keyframe, delete it. So I have no keyframes. So you can see there's no keyframes up here. And if I want to kind of set that automation again with the levels, is again, just kind of starting from the beginning, I'll select V to kind of get back all the way out. Is you select the audio clip that you want to be editing. I drag my cursor to where I want the audio to be all the way faded in, and make sure it's at that kind of maximum level I want. And then I'll add a keyframe by clicking on this little button right here. And then I'll drag to the beginning. And then I'll change my value. You can type in a number. Negative 90 is pretty much infinite down. And it creates two keyframes. You can see the two keyframes right there. And you can see it automates right here. And I can, if I want to, I can just grab this and manually change the bar after the fact right here. So once you kind of create these keyframes here, you can adjust it over here. So I can make it last longer or make it more abrupt right here. Right, so that was short. Now I'm going to make it really long. Okay, and keep in mind you can mute your tracks down here. So now you can kind of hide it right there. So that's what this button is right here. The exact same as Adobe Audition. And what I'm showing right there, so it'll show these little white lines showing the automation. And let's see here. So you can kind of change that after the fact here. And I was showing this animation window for audio, and you can also use it for visual stuff. So if you want to really fine tune your dissolves, you can actually use this window to really kind of get under the hood and really adjust it. And I'm going to try to keep it simple today, so I'm not going to show that right now, but it is something that you can do here. Oh, okay. All Are you able to hear a computer from the audio now? Or sorry, audio from the computer now? If I, oh, you can't hear that? Okay. Well, hopefully, sorry about that. Hopefully what I'm saying, the concept behind it is clear. I don't want to mess too much with the audio settings because I'm worried I'm going to have like, feedback come through the computer. But hopefully you can kind of imagine it, especially seeing these bars right here, so, sorry, yeah, that kind of messes up that demonstration a little bit. For anyone who has any questions about that, just let me know. But just keep your eye on this meter right here so you can see when the levels are low, meaning the volume is low, it's going to be down here. When the volume is high, it's going to be up here. So you can kind of use this as a cheat to see if it's getting louder or softer right here. And so you can see it's really soft at first and it's fading up right here. And as it fades up, it gets louder and louder, which you can hopefully see in these bars right there. Let's see here. So that's the main way that you fade in and out audio right there. Let me just go back to okay. So for today, let's see here. I'm trying to think if I should try to throw anything else at you here. Yeah, let's just kind of keep it at that here today. And in Tuesday's class, I will show you how to export your videos out of Premiere. It's super easy. So it's not going to be too hard on you exporting. Just remember, try to keep this organized in here in your timeline. And when it's time to export, you're going to use your in and out points right here to set your in and out points. And this gray area is going to be what renders right here. And in next class, I'll give a demonstration, and it probably won't have to be too long at all, showing how you can, what you have to do to export it. But essentially, at its core, you're setting this gray area right here, and you go to File, Export in the media right there. And there are certain settings that I'm going to recommend you all use, but I can save that for next class here. Very straightforward right there. Let's see here. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else I forgot. Does anyone have any questions about this demonstration here? I've tried to do a screen recording. Hopefully it comes